Hey there. Tonight, we're slipping back into a world of order, a world of silence, structure, and slow decay. It's the year 1742. You're not a samurai, not a merchant, not even a farmer. You're something stranger. You're the nose that keeps the city from falling ill. Welcome to Edo long before it became Tokyo, a city of strict lines and clean streets, but hidden just under the surface. A world of raw regulation and quiet judgment. You don't carry a sword, you carry a brush and a wooden stamp. And everyone in the market knows who you are because you're the one who says whether food lives or dies. Before we begin, go ahead and dim your screen, maybe light a candle, or let a soft fan hum in the background. And if you haven't yet, feel free to like the video and subscribe. But only if you truly enjoy these long, slow journeys through forgotten corners of the past. And as always, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's always comforting to see who else is up with us. At midnight, at 3 a.m., just letting the mind drift. Now, take a breath, because the market is just beginning to stir, and your day is about to begin. You wake before the sun, not because you're rushed, but because the market will begin without asking. The mat beneath you is thin, but it's enough. You stretch slowly. Feel the morning in your shoulders, the breeze slipping through the reed shutters. It's cool now, but not for long. You fold your blanket neatly, tuck it to the side, and light a small taper. You wash with cold water from a stone bowl by the door. The splash is bracing, but it clears your thoughts. You don't eat, not before your rounds, not with the scent of spoiled rice in your near future. You dress in quiet layers, a plain robe, your sash tied carefully, not too tight. You need to breathe, to smell. Your satchel waits by the door. It's small, worn, but inside it, everything you need. A folded cloth, a bamboo brush, a block of dark ink, a red lacquered stamp, carved with a single character, unfit. It is not heavy, but when you carry it, people notice. You step outside. The streets are still gray, not with fog, but with the softness of pre-dawn. Vendors are just beginning to stir. Lanterns are being lit, curtains drawn aside. Fish carts wheeled into place. No one calls out to you. They nod. They lower their gaze. They know what you are here to do. You make your way to the fish row first. It's always the worst in the heat. Even now, you can smell it. Salt, iron, something just beginning to turn. You crouch beside a stall. No gloves, no tools, just your nose. Your eyes and time, a tuna belly wrapped in leaves. Still cool to the touch, you press it gently. It yields too easily. You breathe in, not sharply, not with revulsion. Just a slow, practiced breath. It's wrong, not completely, but wrong enough. You don't speak, you simply write. 3 strokes, a note in the apprentice's logbook. You stamp the paper. Check again tomorrow. You move on. The market breathes around you. Like a living thing, it wrestles, it shifts, it sweats. A basket of squid glistens nearby, fresh, you're told. Just off the boat. But one has already clouded at the eye. You lift it slightly, turn it, sniff along the ridge of the tentacle. Your expression doesn't change. The merchant fidgets. He knows, and you know that he knows. You write again, not to punish, but to record. To remind, spoilage is not failure. It is time that moved too fast or too slow. You pass rows of pickled vegetables, brine bubbling beneath the lids. You check each seal, press each jar for warmth. One is swollen, a sure sign. You mark it. In the corner of the market, you find a man with dried mushrooms, laid out like coins. They smell of forest, of damp bark. You approve them with a glance. A quiet nod. He smiles, only briefly. Some vendors offer tea. You decline, not out of pride, but caution. You don't want to dull your senses. You check tofu in woven baskets. so soft it barely holds shape, but fresh, still warm from the coagulant's bite. You move on. Rice is next. Always rice, barrels of it, some white, some polished too much, some still husked. You scoop with practiced fingers. Run the grains between your thumb and palm. Dry, whole, but some stick. You lean close. Smell the inside of the barrel. There it is. A trace of mold. You write without emotion. You never raise your voice. You never bargain. Your authority is not loud. It is recorded, stamped, final. You recall past inspections, times when someone begged, wept. You said nothing then too. Because you are not here for punishment. You are here for balance, for protection, for quiet prevention. Sometimes someone offers a bribe, a gift, dread persimmons, a fine comb. You decline, gently but firmly, because if your nose is not trusted, nothing else is. By late morning, your ledger is half full. Your inkstone is nearly dry. You rest your hand for a moment on the edge of a wooden table and breathe. A child watches you from behind a stall, eyes wide, curious, not afraid. She asks her mother who you are. You hear the whisper, he's the one who smells the lies. You smile, just barely. You make one last round to the cooked food alley, where grilled fish and dumplings sizzle, where vendors hope their morning holds up until evening, where scent can hide almost anything. You pause at a tray of onigiri, neatly packed, wrapped in clean cloth, still slightly warm, no sharp vinegar, no sour starch. You let your breath out slowly, then nod. The vendor nods back. She doesn't speak, but you see it in her shoulders, relief, pride. You close your satchel, gently, the stamp back in its pocket, the brush wiped clean, the ledger tucked beneath your arm. Your work is done for now, but never finished. Tomorrow, the route will return. Or maybe the day after. But it always comes, quietly, patiently, just like you. And when it does, you'll be there, to smell it, to mark it, to keep the balance. One breath at a time. The streets of Edo grow quiet after sunset, not empty, just softer. Lanterns sway gently from wooden posts. Their paper skins glow gold against the dark. The stalls are closed. The shutters drawn, fish buckets emptied, rice bags sealed. Even the cats curl into corners, waiting for scraps. That will come again with the morning, that some stories don't sleep. They drift through alleyways, through tatami walls, through the folds of dreams, and one name still drifts louder than most. Oiwa. She wasn't famous when she was alive. She wasn't rich or powerful. She was a wife, a mother, a woman in a quiet house on a forgotten street. Her husband was called Tamiya Iman, once a samurai. Now less, unemployed, discontent, haunted by ambition he couldn't fulfill. Oiwa loved him. We know that much. She tended their home, wrapped rice balls in cloth for his errands, watched over their newborn child, even when money ran out. Even when his temper flared, she stayed, but love doesn't always protect. Eamon wanted something more, a better position, a better marriage, a way back into power, and fate offered him a way. The daughter of a wealthy merchant, young, well-connected, eager to marry. But Eamon had a problem. He was already married to Oiwa, loyal Oiwa, quiet Oiwa, inconvenient Oiwa. So he planned a powder disguised as medicine, given daily, discreetly, lovingly, even. At first, Oiwa thought little of it. She felt tired, then dizzy. Her skin began to pale. Her hair fell in handfuls. One day, a neighbor knocked and gasped at the sight of her face. Oiwa looked into a polished bowl of water and saw it too. One eye, lower than the other, a swelling along her cheek. Her mouth pulled to the side. She cried, not because she feared death, but because she knew her husband had done this. Still, she stayed. Maybe for her child, maybe because there was nowhere else to go. But grief can only stay quiet for so long. One night, she died. Some say it was poison. Some say it was heartbreak. Some say she was struck in anger. The stories differ, but the pain remains the same. What followed was not silence. Iman prepared for his new marriage, but on the day of the wedding, his bride looked into her mirror and saw Oiwa's twisted face. She screamed, collapsed, and died before she could say, "I do." Terrified, Iman fled. But wherever he went, Oiwa followed, not as a monster, not as flame, but as a presence in shadows, in doorways. In quiet reflections, he tried to hide, he tried to pray, he tried to forget, but every time he closed his eyes, she was waiting. Some say he descended into madness. Others say he confessed and lived out his days in guilt, alone, unrecognized, unforgiven. Oiwa's legend didn't vanish. It grew. Her story became a kabuki play, told again and again on dusty stages. Beneath wrestling fans, audiences watched as she emerged from lanterns, as her face floated from ink-black walls, as her quiet, lingering sorrow bent even the cruelest man. Actors who played her visit her grave before each performance. They offer incense, prayers, and ask forgiveness just in case, even today. Her grave rests at Miyaju Temple in Tokyo. Visitors leave rice cakes, small gifts, sometimes only silence, because they understand this is not just a ghost story. It's a memory, a reminder that even in a society as orderly as Edo, some wrongs echo longer than laws. And some voices, even when quiet, even when wronged, refuse to disappear. So when you next pass a lantern that flickers without wind, or hear a floorboard creak in a sealed room, don't be afraid, but do remember her. Oiwa, the woman who was loved and betrayed, and who returned not for revenge, but to be seen. The city of Edo was crowded, more than 1 million people, packed between rivers, bridges, and alleys, and yet it was clean. Not by magic, not by accident, but by rhythm. The streets were swept, the canals were managed, the waste was handled, not hidden, handled with precision, with patience, with a quiet sort of dignity, because in Edo, human waste had value. It had direction. It had purpose. They called it night soil, a soft name, a necessary one, because it was collected at night before the sun, before the smells grew stronger, before the city began to breathe. The job was unofficial but recognized, uncelebrated but essential. Men woke before the market bell, shouldered their poles, balanced heavy buckets across their backs, and made their rounds. House by house, block by block, they knew the doors that creaked, the steps that shifted, the narrow lanes where wheels stuck in the mud. Most homes had a toilet box at the rear, a wooden structure, a removable lid, a quiet place. Sometimes it was a single family, sometimes a shared row, but the contents always the same. And you, the collector, learned to lift it gently, to not spill, to never make a sound. Because even if the job was important, it was also unseen. People didn't meet your eyes, didn't greet you, didn't speak your name, but they paid quietly, on time, because they needed you. The waste was sorted, sometimes watery, sometimes firm, mixed with rice chaff, straw, sometimes ash, sometimes charcoal. Each mix better for certain crops, and then it was transported, not dumped, delivered, to farms. Rice paddies on the city's edge, vegetable plots beyond the river bend, orchards farther still, fertilizer, compost, nutrients. Night soil became life. It was sold by weight, by consistency, by source. Yes, some farms paid more for waste from samurai homes, believing the diet produced better nutrients, more fish, more miso, better digestion. There were even contracts. Agreements between households and collectors, between collectors and farms. If a family broke its agreement, the collector could take their buckets elsewhere, and the household would be left unpleasantly full. Competition was strong. Some collectors inherited roots, others bought them. It was a business, a quiet one, but lucrative if you could bear the smell. There were unspoken rules. Don't spill in front of a shrine. Don't track dirt into a merchant's shop. Don't work during the morning tea hour. And above all, don't forget to clean the bucket rims. It wasn't about pride. It was about function and respect, because while no one praised you, everyone relied on you. Farmers lined up in summer, wagons waiting for their share. Some brought their own containers, others sent sons, sometimes daughters. And the collector, you, measured the bucket, scooped, poured, nodded once. No receipt, just a ritual, repeated 1,000 times. Sometimes you'd be invited for tea, a token of appreciation, not friendship, but recognition. And sometimes you refused, not out of rudeness, but to stay on schedule. There were always more houses, always more pails. You wore gloves if you had them, but more often a cloth wrap, tied at the wrist, soaked in vinegar or pine ash. You scrubbed your hands at dusk, more than once, with sand, with salt, with boiling water. Still, the smell lingered on your clothes, in your nails, behind your ears, but eventually you stopped noticing. It was work, and it mattered. You weren't just collecting, you were connecting. City to field, waste to growth, yesterday to tomorrow. The samurai had swords, the merchants had ledgers, the monks had chants, and you had buckets, but yours fed the people, yours nourished the land. Yours were part of the city's breath. And when you passed others in the alley, you said nothing, and they said nothing. But they stepped aside, they made way, because without you, the streets would swell, the crops would fail, and the silence would smell. But instead, the soil stayed rich. The rice stayed tall. The cycle stayed whole. You walked home each evening, empty buckets swinging, one on each shoulder. Back aching, face unreadable. You hung your robe by the door, lit a small candle, and sat, alone, not proud, not ashamed, just still. Tomorrow, it would begin again, and you would carry what no one else wanted, so that everything else could live. The invitation arrives, without urgency, written on handmade paper, brushed in black ink, simple, understated, but unmistakable in its meaning. It says, there will be tea, that's all, but everything is understood. You begin preparing days in advance, not because you need to, but because the ritual begins the moment you say yes. You lay out your robe. Choose your socks carefully. Ensure your nails are clean. Your thoughts quiet. On the morning of the ceremony, you wake early, wash your hands, rinse your mouth, eat little, because this is not a meal, it's a moment. You walk slowly to the tea house, through narrow lanes, past gates carved in old wood, into a garden. The path wanes, never straight, never rushed, each step intentional. Stones beneath your feet, moss between the edges. A bamboo spout nearby, dripping water into a stone basin. Rhythmic, timeless, clean. You pause, wash your hands again, rinse your mouth again. Not for hygiene, but for awareness. You remove your sandals. Step through a low doorway, so low you must bow, even if you didn't mean to. Inside, the room is small, dim, simple. A single flower in a clay vase, a scroll with one line of poetry. Today it says, snow melts, spring returns. The room smells of tatami, of pine ash, and faintly of matcha. You take your seat, Kneel gently, hands on your lap. Back straight, eyes soft. No one speaks loudly. Voices are quiet. Movement slower than usual. You listen to breathing, to the brush of fabric, to the kettle beginning to hum. The host enters. He bows. You bow. Everyone acknowledges everyone as equals, even if you aren't in the space. There are no titles, no swords, no ranks, only attention. The host lifts the cloth, folds it, unfolds it, folds it again. Wipes the scoop, wipes the bowl, each movement. Careful, balanced, meaningful, not to impress, but to respect. The matcha is measured, sifted, 2 scoops. No more. Hot water is ladled from the iron pot, not boiling, just warm enough. Steam rises, curling slowly in the quiet air. The whisk moves in M shapes, then circles, then stillness. A froth forms, pale green, thick, smooth. The bowl is turned. Not once, but twice, then offered. You bow. Accept it with both hands, raise it slightly, a silent thank you. Then you turn it once more, to avoid sipping from the front, and bring it to your lips. The tea is bitter, earthy, deep. It doesn't ask to be liked. Only notice. You drink slowly. 3 sips, maybe 4, then the last loud enough to be heard. You wipe the rim, admire the bowl, place it gently back, and bow. The others do the same, each person receiving, then returning. The tools are cleaned, silently, lovingly, the scoop placed back in its box, the whisk dried, the bowl cradled like a sleeping child. Outside, the wind stirs the maple leaves. You hear it faintly through the shoshi screen. Nothing demands your attention. Everything simply is. The host speaks softly, says a word of thanks. A bow, another. You feel something settle in your chest, like water coming still, like a bell after it rings, like breath after release. When you step back into the garden, everything feels brighter, more alive. Even the stones seem to greet you. You walk back slowly, not because your feet are tired, but because you don't want to break the spell. You notice small things, the tilt of a fern, the moss beneath a tree, the way the sun falls on a wooden beam. And you realize the tea wasn't the lesson, the silence was, the attention was, the stillness was. The ceremony is over, but its rhythm stays with you, in the way you breathe, in the way you hold your cup tomorrow, in the way you greet someone with intention. Because even in Edo, a world of fish sellers and soil carriers, there were places where time softened, where value wasn't shouted but whispered. And tea, quiet, bitter, beautiful tea, was enough to remind you peace is not given. It is made, poured, shared, 1 cup at a time. And now the doors to Edo close behind you, quietly, gently, as if they were never open at all. You've seen so much tonight, but none of it rushed, none of it loud. Just the quiet rhythm of a city that never really needed to shout. You were the one with the sharp nose, moving through markets still damp with morning, inspecting fish, judging rice, keeping balance with your silence. You were there when the whisper of betrayal became legend, when Oiwa's name became more than a warning, but a presence. You didn't turn away. You listened, softly. You walked streets no one else stared, lifting buckets with quiet hands, turning decay into nourishment and shame into utility. And when it was time, you left the world behind, stepped into a room no larger than a breath, sat with others, equal, still, alive to every gesture, every sip. Now, all of it is fading, but not lost, just soft, like old paper, like dusk, like the sound of wind on wooden walls. There's no lesson to remember, no quiz at the end, no reason to hold anything tight. Let it go. Let the images drift backward, into shadows, into warmth. You've earned that, the stillness, the unhurriedness. The quiet knowing that you've gone somewhere few ever have. And you didn't even have to move. Maybe your body is already heavy. Maybe your fingers no longer care to twitch. Maybe you're floating a little, not asleep, not awake, just there, perfect. Because this is the part where there are no more words. Only sounds. The sound of firewood crackling softly. Not too loud, not too fast. Just enough. Like breath. Like memory. Like time if it stopped caring. You can stay here as long as you like. There's no outrow, no one waiting. The world will keep spinning. The rice will grow. The tea will steep. The ghost will linger. And the water will keep warming in the kettle. And you don't have to do anything. Just rest. Let the fire keep you company. Let the story become something warm in the background. Let the sleep come. If it hasn't already, you're safe. You're still. You're home. Sleep well, and I'll see you next time. Good night.